The marketplace on the alien world was alive with noise and color, filled with glowing lights, strange smells, and the chatter of 100 different species. Merchants shouted, trying to sell food, tools, and rare crystals. Children ran through the crowd laughing. Travelers bargained hard, their voices rising above the hum of engines from hovering carts. It was a place of life, of movement, of trade. But in the middle of this river of people, one figure moved slowly, almost like she was drowning in it. An old alien lady, her skin dull and wrinkled, her steps shaky, wandered between the stalls. Her clothes were torn and dirty, her satchel broken and dragging on the ground. She looked lost, her eyes darting around like she was searching for something she could not find. No one helped her. Some turned their faces away. Others wrinkled their noses and whispered to each other. A group of alien children pointed and laughed before running off. Even the merchants, who normally smiled at every passerby hoping for a sale, stepped back from her path as if she carried a curse. The old alien lady stumbled and almost fell. She clutched her satchel tightly, though it seemed to hold nothing but scraps. Her breathing was heavy, and her long, thin fingers shook as she reached for a stall, only for the merchant there to slap her hand away with disgust. "Not here, old one," the merchant hissed. "Go away before you scare my customers." The woman lowered her head and moved on. She said nothing, but her eyes were filled with pain. From the edge of the market, a human teen watched. His name was Ethan, barely 17, with short brown hair and worn-out boots. He was new to this planet, staying with his uncle for a season of work. Ethan had seen aliens of many kinds in the city, but something about this old lady caught his attention. Everyone ignored her, like she was invisible. But Ethan could not look away. She looked fragile. But there was also something strange about her. Her eyes, when the light hit them, seemed to glow faintly. Only for a moment, but Ethan noticed. He took a step closer, weaving through the crowd, curiosity pulling him forward. The old lady tried to lift her satchel, but it slipped from her weak grip and fell to the ground. The straps tore completely, spilling what little was inside. A few crumbs of dried bread, a broken trinket, and a piece of cloth with strange markings on it. The crowd laughed cruelly. "Pathetic," muttered one alien. "Why does she even come here?" whispered another. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Something inside him refused to walk away. He stepped forward, bent down, and picked up the satchel. Gently, he gathered the crumbs, the trinket, and the cloth, placing them back. The old lady looked up at him, her face lined with years of suffering. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. "It's okay," Ethan said softly, holding out the satchel. "Here, let me help you," a few merchants gasped. Others shook their heads. One even warned him loudly, "Boy, leave her." "Don't touch her. She brings bad luck." Ethan ignored them. He offered his hand, and after a long pause, the old lady placed her trembling fingers in his. Her skin was cold, almost too cold, and her touch sent a strange shiver up his arm. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice weak but full of emotion. Her accent was heavy, her words slow, but Ethan understood. "Sit here," he said, guiding her to the side of a stall. He pulled out a flask from his bag and gave her water. She sipped carefully, her eyes closing in relief. The crowd began to move again, losing interest. But Ethan still felt the weight of their stares. Some were afraid, others angry, as if he had broken a silent rule by helping her. The old lady opened her eyes again, looking at Ethan with intensity. For a brief second, her pupils glowed brighter, like tiny stars. Ethan blinked, wondering if his eyes were playing tricks on him. "You are kind," she murmured. Ethan smiled awkwardly. "Just trying to help." Before he could say more, a sound cut through the marketplace. Heavy boots. A group of armored guards marched into view, their weapons glowing faintly. Their eyes scanned the crowd, sharp and searching. The old lady froze. Her grip on Ethan's arm tightened, her entire body trembling. The guards moved closer, pushing people aside, heading straight toward them. Ethan felt his heart race. Why were they coming here? Why were they looking at her? One guard pointed directly at the old lady. "There she is," he growled. "The lost one. Don't let her escape." The crowd stepped back quickly, giving the guard space. Whispers spread like fire. Ethan stared at the old lady. She was no longer just a helpless stranger. Something about her was dangerous or important. The old lady's lips moved. She whispered so softly only Ethan could hear, "Please, don't let them take me." And in that moment, Ethan understood. His simple act of kindness had just pulled him into something far bigger. and far more dangerous than he ever imagined. The air around the marketplace grew tense as the guards closed in. Their armor reflected the neon lights, and their heavy steps made the ground tremble. People whispered, moving away quickly, not wanting to be near the scene. Ethan stood frozen for a moment. He was only a human teenager, and these guards looked dangerous, trained, and armed, but the old alien lady's grip on his arm reminded him that she was terrified. Truly terrified. Her thin frame shook, and her glowing eyes looked up at him with silent pleading. He swallowed hard and spoke softly. "Stay close to me." The guards stopped just a few feet away. Their leader, a tall alien with deep red skin and sharp tusks, sneered at the sight of Ethan helping the old woman. "Human," the guard barked. "Step aside. This one is not your concern." Ethan hesitated. He looked at the old woman, then at the guards. "Why? She hasn't done anything." The leader's voice was cold. "She is marked. Dangerous. Do not interfere," the crowd murmured. Words like marked and dangerous spread quickly. Yet the old lady looked nothing like a threat, just a lost, fragile creature who could barely walk. Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't believe them. He bent down slightly and whispered, "Do you want to go with them?" Her head shook violently. "No!" "Please, no." That was enough for Ethan. He lifted the broken satchel onto his shoulder and helped her to her feet. The guards growled in anger. "Boy," the leader warned, "you don't understand what you're doing." "Maybe not," Ethan replied, his voice shaking but steady enough to carry. "But I won't just leave her." Gasps rose from the crowd. No one defied the guards. No one. The old woman's eyes shimmered with faint light again. She whispered to Ethan, her voice low and strange. "Kindness. Rare in this age." "Thank you, child." The guard stepped forward, ready to grab her. Ethan didn't think, he just acted. "This way," he whispered, pulling her toward a side alley. They moved fast, weaving through the narrow passage between two glowing stalls. The crowd parted in shock, but no one dared stop them. Behind, the guards shouted and pushed through, their boots pounding closer. Ethan guided the old lady down a crooked path of alleys, their walls damp and lined with broken pipes. Neon lights flickered above them. The old lady struggled to keep up, her breath coming in short gasps. "Can you run?" Ethan asked. She shook her head. "Not far, but I will try." They turned a corner, and for a moment the sound of guards faded. Ethan leaned against the wall, panting. He gave her water again, and she sipped slowly. "You shouldn't have helped me," she whispered, guilt in her voice. "Now they will come for you too." Ethan shook his head. "You were alone." "Nobody cared. I couldn't just stand there." Her eyes softened. For a moment her hand brushed his cheek. Her fingers were icy, but her touch carried warmth of another kind, gratitude. "Strange human," she murmured. "You don't fear me. Why should I?" Ethan asked. "You're just an old lady." A sad smile crossed her lips. If only it were so simple. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the sound of clanging metal echoed from behind them. The guards were close again. Ethan helped her back onto her feet. "Come on, we can't stop here." They hurried deeper into the city's underbelly. The path twisted into darker alleys where the smell of oil and smoke was thick. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. Warnings, graffiti, or maybe something else. Ethan didn't know, but the old lady stared at them with recognition in her eyes. "They still remember," she whispered. "Remember what?" Ethan asked, confused. Her answer never came. A shadow fell over the alley, and 3 guards appeared from the other side, blocking their path. Ethan froze. The old lady gasped, trapped. The leader stepped forward again, his tusks glinting in the dim light. "Last chance, human. Leave her and you may go free." Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan. But he saw the fear in her eyes, and something inside him hardened. He couldn't walk away. "I'm not leaving her," Ethan said firmly. The guards raised their weapons. Blue energy hummed, ready to fire. The old lady clutched Ethan's arm tightly, and then it happened. Her wrist glowed. The strange symbols on her skin flared with bright light, casting the alley in an otherworldly glow. The guard stumbled back in shock. Ethan's eyes widened. "What is that?" The old lady's voice was trembling but clear. "A piece of who I once was." The guards roared in anger, charging forward. Ethan grabbed her hand and darted to the side, slipping into a hidden passage between 2 buildings. The glow from her wrist lit the path as they ran, the guards' shouts echoing behind them. When they finally stopped, far from the marketplace, Ethan pressed his back against a wall, trying to catch his breath. The old lady sat beside him, her glowing wrist fading again. She looked weaker now, almost drained. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, voice low but urgent. Her eyes lifted to his. "Not who they say I am, but not who you think either." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought he was helping a lost stranger, but now he realized this woman carried secrets powerful enough to shake the city, and he was now a part of them. The city at night looked different. The bright colors of the market faded into shadows, and the alleys were filled with flickering neon signs and humming pipes. Ethan guided the old alien lady deeper into the hidden parts of the city, but he knew the guards would not give up. Their footsteps had shaken the streets, and their voices still echoed in his mind. The old lady leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her wrist, which had glowed so brightly, was dim again. She looked fragile, weaker than ever. Ethan crouched beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly, though her eyes looked heavy with exhaustion. "I will manage, but they will keep hunting. They cannot allow me to exist." Ethan frowned. "Why?" "You're not dangerous." Her lips curved into a sad smile. "Not dangerous to you, kind one. But to them? My memory alone is a threat." Before Ethan could ask more, he heard the clatter of boots again. Louder this time, closer. The guards were sweeping the alleys, their voices barking orders. "We must move," the old lady whispered, fear in her voice. Ethan pulled her gently to her feet, and they slipped through the narrow path. The walls dripped with water, the air thick with the smell of rust. In the distance, flashes of blue light cut across the shadows as the guards used scanners to search. Ethan's heart raced. He had never been hunted before, never felt the danger of being caught. But now each sound of boots, each flicker of light felt like a hammer striking his chest. Still he kept moving, holding her hand, determined not to leave her behind. They reached a small bridge over a steaming canal. The water below glowed faintly, poisoned by strange chemicals. Ethan helped her across, but just as they reached the other side, a shout rang out. "There! Stop them!" Blue bolts of energy shot past, burning holes in the walls. Ethan ducked, pulling the old lady with him. She stumbled, nearly falling, but Ethan caught her. Together they dashed into another alley, their shadows dancing wildly against the walls. The chase was on. The guards spread out behind them, their heavy armor clanging as they gave pursuit. Ethan's lungs burned, but he pushed himself harder. His mind screamed at him. He was just a human teen, not a fighter, not a hero. But the old woman's hand in his reminded him why he kept going. She needed him. They turned a corner and burst into a wider street. Hover carts zoomed past, their engines whining. Ethan dragged her across, weaving between carts as horns blared and drivers shouted. Behind them, the guards forced their way through the traffic, shoving aside anyone in their way. Ethan spotted an abandoned storage dome ahead. Its large metal doors hung broken, and faint lights flickered inside. It wasn't safe, but it was shelter. He guided her inside, the doors scraping loudly as they pushed through. The dome was dusty and dark. Old crates were stacked high and broken machines lay scattered. Ethan pulled her behind a pile of crates and crouched low. His chest rose and fell quickly as he tried to catch his breath. The old lady's face was pale, her eyes half closed. Ethan gave her the last of his water. She drank slowly, then whispered, "You risk much for me. Why?" Ethan shrugged, though his voice shook. "Because nobody else would, and because you're not what they say." She studied him, her glowing eyes softening. "Humans," she murmured, almost to herself. "Always surprising." The sound of heavy boots returned, closer than before. Guards entered the dome, their lights sweeping across the crates. Ethan's heart pounded. He held his breath, pressing her hand to keep her calm. The guards' lights passed dangerously close, but for a moment they didn't see them. Then one of the guards shouted, "Over here!" Blue light burst across the crates. Ethan pulled the old lady to her feet, and they ran deeper into the dome. The guards followed, firing bolts that sizzled through the air. Crates exploded, sending dust and debris everywhere. Ethan ducked behind a machine, dragging her down with him. The old lady raised her glowing wrist again. The symbols on her skin flared brighter this time, casting a pale blue light that spread across the walls. The guards hesitated. For a moment they seemed afraid. "What is she?" one whispered. The leader snarled. "It doesn't matter." "Take her down!" Ethan stared at the glowing map forming on the wall. Lines and symbols stretched like a star chart, pointing to distant places. He didn't understand it, but it was powerful, ancient and alive. The old lady's voice shook as she whispered, "This is why they fear me. The past I carry is not meant to be forgotten." Before Ethan could reply, another blast tore through the wall and more guards stormed in. The dome shook with their attack. Ethan realized they couldn't stay here. He pulled her hand again. "Come on, we have to go." Together they slipped through a broken passage at the back of the dome. The air outside was cold and sharp, but it was freedom. They ran again into the night, the guards roaring behind them. The chase was not over. It had only just begun, and Ethan knew one thing for sure now. This old lady was far more than she seemed. The night air was sharp and filled with smoke from the city's endless engines. Ethan and the old alien lady stumbled out of the ruined dome, their lungs burning from dust. Behind them, the guards' voices echoed like thunder, promising they would not stop until their quarry was caught. Ethan guided her through a maze of back streets, past broken neon signs and crumbling walls. They finally reached a quieter corner of the city, far from the marketplace. Here the lights were dim, and the silence pressed heavily around them. The old woman collapsed against a wall, her chest heaving. Ethan crouched beside her, worry etched on his face. "You can't keep running like this," he said. "You need to rest," she nodded weakly. "For a moment?" "Yes," Ethan scanned the area. His eyes landed on a large abandoned storage shed nearby, its door half broken and hanging on rusty hinges. He helped her inside. The air was cold, but it was shelter. Inside, shadows stretched long across the dusty floor. Old containers and rusted machines lay scattered like forgotten bones. Ethan guided her to a corner and sat her down carefully. She closed her eyes, shivering slightly. For a few minutes there was only silence. Ethan tried to calm his own racing heart. He had never been hunted before, never been in danger like this. But something about the woman made him stay. Something told him she was important, more important than he could imagine. Her hand twitched suddenly. Ethan noticed the faint glow returning to her wrist. Strange symbols shimmered on her skin again, faint at first, then stronger. Ethan leaned closer. "What is that?" Her eyes opened slowly, the glow of her pupils brighter in the dark. She raised her wrist and the light spilled across the wall beside them. The symbols stretched outward, forming lines, circles, and shapes. Slowly, a map unfolded across the wall, glowing like a living star chart. Ethan's mouth dropped open. That's a map." The old lady's voice trembled. "A memory, locked inside me. It wakes when touched by kindness." Ethan turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" Her eyes grew distant, as if staring far into the past. "I was once someone else, someone not forgotten. I ruled not by force but by trust. Entire worlds look to me, but betrayal is sharp and age makes the strongest bones brittle." Ethan felt a chill. This fragile woman, ignored in the market, had once ruled worlds. It seemed impossible. But the glowing map said otherwise. The symbols shifted again, showing vaults scattered across the galaxy. Each one pulsed with faint light. "These are memories of my people," she whispered. "Knowledge, history, power, locked away so it would not be erased. I was chosen to guard them." Her voice cracked with sorrow. "But those who once swore loyalty turned against me. They hunted me, erased my name, and told the galaxy I was gone." Ethan listened, his young mind struggling to grasp the scale. "So those guards, they're part of the ones who betrayed you?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, they fear the truth. They fear that I still live. If I awaken fully, their lies will burn away." Ethan clenched his fists. "That's why they're hunting you. They want to keep you silent." She looked at him, her eyes soft. "And you, human child, stepped into their storm without knowing." Ethan swallowed hard. He should have been scared, but instead he felt anger. Anger at the way the market ignored her. Anger at the way the guards hunted her like prey. "I couldn't leave you," he said firmly. "No matter who you are or were." For the first time she smiled. It was small, tired but real. The map on the wall flickered, one vault glowing brighter than the others. Ethan pointed. "What's that?" Her gaze followed his finger. Her eyes widened. "That is the first vault." The heart of it all. A loud clang echoed outside. Both of them froze. The guards were near again, their heavy boots marching closer. Ethan quickly pulled her hand down and the glowing map faded back into her wrist. The shed grew dark once more. "Hide," he whispered. They crouched low behind the containers as the door creaked open. A beam of blue light swept across the shed. Voices followed, check every corner. They came this way. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He felt the old lady's hand grip his tightly, her skin ice cold. She leaned close and whispered, her breath shaking. If they capture me, don't follow. Save yourself. Ethan shook his head fiercely. No, I'm not leaving you. The guard's light drew closer. One of them knocked over a rusted machine, the crash echoing through the shed. Ethan grabbed a metal rod lying nearby, his hands sweating. He knew it was useless against their weapons, but it was all he had. His mind screamed at him to run, but his body stayed where it was, between her and danger. The door slammed wider, and the guard stepped inside fully. Their leader snarled. Spread out. She's here. The old woman's wrist flickered faintly as if responding to her fear. Ethan saw it and whispered quickly, Can you use that again? The map, whatever it is. Her eyes closed. It takes strength I no longer have, unless... She opened her eyes again, looking straight at him. Unless you give me yours. Ethan blinked. What, how? Your hand, she said softly. Hold my hand willingly, trust me. The guard's boots drew closer. Their lights flashed across the room. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grasped her cold hand in his. The symbols on her wrist flared alive instantly, brighter than ever. The shed filled with blue light. The guards cried out, shielding their eyes. The old lady's body trembled, but her voice grew stronger. Memory awakens. The glowing map returned, stretching not just across the wall this time, but through the entire room, covering the ceiling and floor. Stars burned, planets shone, paths connected like veins of fire. The guards stumbled back in fear. One shouted, It's her! She still lives. Ethan stared in awe. He had no idea what he had just unleashed, but one thing was clear. This was not the end of their escape. It was the beginning of something far greater. The shed glowed like the inside of a starship's core. Lines of light stretched across the walls, forming star charts and ancient runes. Ethan stood frozen, his hand locked with the old alien lady's. He could feel her cold fingers warming slightly as energy passed between them, a strange connection binding them together. The guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the bright light. Their leader snarled, his tusks bared in fury. She should not have this power anymore. End it, blasters raised. Blue bolts shot forward, sizzling the air. But the glowing symbols on the walls pulsed in response, creating a faint shimmering shield around Ethan and the old lady. The energy bolts dissolved harmlessly, scattering like sparks. Ethan's jaw dropped. What is this? The old lady's voice was steady now, stronger than it had been in hours. The truth. A truth they fear above all things. Her eyes glowed, reflecting the map's light. The guards hesitated, their confidence faltering. Some even stepped back, whispering among themselves. Ethan turned to her. Who are you, really? The woman looked at him, her glowing pupils sharp and clear. I am Serenia. Once I was High Matron of the Starlight Dominion, ruler of 7 worlds. Keeper of memory. Ethan blinked, stunned. The fragile, lost old lady he had helped in the market. She had once been a queen. Serenia continued, her voice filled with both pride and sorrow. I was betrayed. Those who feared change turned against me. They erased my name from records, hunted me, and told the galaxy I had died. But I lived, hidden, broken, waiting. Ethan's chest tightened. The pieces fit together now. The guards weren't just chasing a lost old woman, they were trying to erase history itself. But why? Ethan asked. Why are they so afraid of you? Serenia raised her glowing wrist, pointing to the map on the wall.
Because I hold memory.
Vaults scattered across the galaxy, each one filled with knowledge, weapons, and secrets that could topple the traitors who now sit on thrones. If I awaken, their lies will fall. Ethan's eyes widened. So, you're saying they control everything now, but if people knew the truth, they would rise. Serenia finished, her voice hard. Empires built on lies cannot survive the light of memory. The guards roared in anger. Enough of this. The leader charged forward, his blade crackling with energy. Ethan's heart leapt. Instinctively, he stepped in front of Serenia, holding nothing but the rusted metal rod he had picked up earlier. His hands trembled, but he refused to move aside. The guard swung. Ethan raised the rod, and in that moment, the glowing map flared brighter. Energy surged from Serenia's wrist into Ethan, running through his body like fire. The rod in his hand glowed, catching the guard's strike with a burst of light. The guard stumbled back, eyes wide in shock. Ethan gasped, his arms shaking from the force. What just happened? Serenya's voice rang clear, filled with awe. You are the key. The prophecy spoke of a human who would awaken the Keeper. It is you. Ethan shook his head, terrified. Me, I'm nobody. Her hand gripped his tighter. You are not nobody. You chose kindness when all others turned away. That choice made you worthy. The guards regrouped, circling them, rage burning in their eyes. Kill them both! But fear lingered in their movements. Ethan could see it. They were afraid, not of him but of Serenya, of the truth she carried. Serenya stood taller now, her frail body seeming to regain strength. The glow of her wrist spread across her arms and chest like veins of light. She looked less like a beggar and more like the queen she once was. Her voice boomed with authority. You fear me because you know what I am. You call me dangerous, but it is your lies that are the true danger. The guards faltered, unsure. Some lowered their weapons, trembling. The leader growled and raised his blade again. Ethan's heart hammered. He didn't know how to fight, but he refused to back down. He lifted the glowing rod, standing beside her. For a tense moment, the room held its breath. Then, with a sudden roar, the guards rushed again. The battle erupted in flashes of blue and white light. Ethan swung desperately, the rod humming with strange energy, blocking attacks he should never have been able to stop. Serenya raised her hand, her wrist blazing, and waves of light pushed enemies back. The fight was chaos, but together they held their ground. At last, the surviving guards retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The leader glared at Serenya with hatred. This is not over. You cannot escape the Dominion's reach. They vanished into the shadows, leaving silence behind. Ethan collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. His arms ached, his legs shook, but somehow they had survived. Serenya lowered herself beside him, her glow dimming again. She looked at him with eyes that carried both sadness and pride. You should not have been part of this, she whispered. But now you are, and fate will not let you go. Ethan shook his head, still catching his breath. Then I'll see it through. I'm not leaving you. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You have the heart of a protector. The galaxy does not know it yet, but it will. Ethan stared at the fading map on the wall, its vaults glowing faintly. A chill ran down his spine. He wasn't just helping an old woman anymore. He was standing beside the last queen of a fallen empire, and the galaxy's secrets were now his burden too. The shed lay in ruins. Crates were broken, smoke curled in the air, and scorch marks from blaster fire covered the walls. Ethan sat on the ground, his chest rising and falling quickly, his arms still trembling from the strange energy that had filled him. Beside him, Serenya leaned against the wall. Her body looked frail again, but her eyes still glowed faintly, holding a strength that refused to fade. For a long moment they said nothing, only listening to the distant echoes of the guards retreating. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice low. They'll come back, won't they? Serenya nodded slowly. Yes, they fear me more now than ever. They will not rest. Ethan looked at the glowing rod in his hand, still faintly humming with power. And they'll come for me too because of this. Her eyes softened. Yes, you have tied your fate to mine, but you chose it freely. Ethan swallowed, his stomach twisting with fear. He was just a teenager, not a soldier, not a hero. Yet deep down he knew he would not abandon her. Then we keep moving, he said firmly. We find those vaults before they do. Serenya smiled faintly, the lines on her face deepening. You speak like one of my old captains, brave, even when afraid. She raised her wrist again, and for a moment the symbols flared. But this time, instead of spreading across the walls, the light sank into her chest. Her body straightened, and the faint tremble in her limbs faded. The glow spread through her veins, wrapping her in a soft aura. Ethan's eyes widened. You look stronger. Her voice grew steadier. The bond awakened me. When you held my hand willingly, when you chose to protect me, part of my power returned. I am still old, still broken, but not powerless anymore. She stood slowly, taller than before, her shadow stretching across the ruined shed. For the first time, Ethan saw not a fragile beggar but a queen reborn. At that moment, a loud crash echoed outside. The guards were back, and this time there were more of them. Ethan's heart leapt into his throat. Serenya's glowing eyes narrowed. We will not run this time. The doors burst open and a squad of armored guards stormed in, weapons raised. Their leader pointed at Serenya, his voice full of hatred. End her now. Do not let her escape again. Ethan raised his glowing rod, his legs shaking. There's too many, he whispered. Serenia placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was calm, steady. Do not fear. Stand with me. The guards fired. Bolts of blue energy filled the room. But Serenia raised her hands, and the glowing symbols on her wrists flared brighter than ever. A wave of light burst outward, forming a shimmering shield that covered both her and Ethan. The blasts struck the shield and dissolved into sparks. The guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes. Ethan gasped. You blocked all of it. Serenia's voice carried power now, strong and commanding. This is only the beginning. She lowered her hands and the shield exploded outward, a shockwave of light slamming into the guards. Armor cracked, weapons flew from their hands, and several were thrown back against the walls. Ethan's jaw dropped. The frail old woman he had found in the market now stood like a warrior queen, glowing with forgotten strength. The leader roared in fury, raising his blade again. He charged, his tusks glinting in the light. Ethan stepped forward to block, but Serenia lifted her hand. Enough. A beam of light shot from her wrist, striking the blade and shattering it into pieces. The leader froze, eyes wide with shock. Serenia's voice was cold and sharp. You dare chase me? When you live only because I once spared your kind? The guards looked at one another, fear spreading through their ranks. Some dropped their weapons and fled. The leader growled but stumbled back, realizing he could not win. This changes nothing, he spat. The Dominion will crush you. And the boy. He turned and vanished with the last of his soldiers. The shed fell silent again. Ethan let out a long breath, his legs nearly giving out. That was unbelievable. Serenia lowered her hands, her glow dimming again. She sank slowly to the floor, her strength clearly drained. Ethan rushed to her side. Are you okay? Her lips curved into a faint smile. The power is not endless. Each use drains me, but I have more than I thought. Ethan looked at her wrist, the symbol still glowing faintly. So you really were? A queen, she nodded. And now, with you, perhaps I can be again. Ethan blinked. Me? I don't even know what I'm doing. You stood when all others ran, Serenia said softly. That is what makes a leader. The galaxy does not need perfection. It needs courage. Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't feel like a leader. He felt like a scared boy holding a stick against soldiers. But when he remembered how the crowd had ignored her in the market, and how he had chosen differently, he realized she was right. He had chosen kindness. And that choice had changed everything. Serenia placed a hand on his arm. The vaults must be found, but I cannot reach them alone. You are the bridge between what was and what must come. Ethan nodded slowly, determination rising inside him. Then we'll find them, together. Serenia smiled faintly, her glowing eyes soft. Together. The night outside was quiet again, but Ethan knew it wouldn't last. The Dominion would come harder next time, with more soldiers, more weapons. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid, because beside him stood not just an old alien woman, but the last queen of a forgotten empire. And she was rising again. The city was beginning to stir with whispers. Word of the glowing light and the battle in the shed had spread fast. Some called it a rebellion. Others said an ancient ghost had returned. But no matter what name they gave it, the news raced through the streets. The forgotten queen still lived. Ethan and Serenia walked carefully through the quieter alleys, staying in the shadows. The night air was cold, but it carried a strange energy, as if the city itself knew something had changed. Ethan carried the broken satchel on his shoulder. Serenia walked beside him, her steps steadier now, her eyes glowing faintly. The aura around her made her look less like a beggar and more like a queen reborn, even if her body was still weak. At last, they reached the edge of the city. There, the wide plain stretched out under a dark sky full of stars. The lights of the city glimmered behind them, and ahead lay freedom. They stopped near an old transport station, abandoned and silent. Serenia sat on a broken bench, her face thoughtful. Ethan stood nearby, scanning the sky nervously for patrols. We can't keep running forever, Ethan said finally. They'll just keep coming. Serenia nodded slowly. That is true, which is why I must choose now. Ethan turned to her, confused. Choose what? Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his. Whether I remain in hiding, or rise again. If I rise, the galaxy will be shaken. Empires will burn, and you, child, will be tied to me until the end. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had imagined choices like picking a school, or choosing a job someday, not deciding whether to join an ancient queen in a war across the stars. He swallowed hard. And if you stay hidden? Serena's voice softened. Then the Dominion continues its lies. The vaults remain sealed. History dies in silence, and the galaxy forgets who it once was. Ethan looked down at his hands. They were still scraped and burned from the fight. He was only 17, but deep in his chest he knew what felt right. He looked back at her. If you rise, I'll stand with you. Whatever happens. Her lips curved into a smile, proud and sad at once. You do not even ask what it will cost you. Ethan shook his head. Doesn't matter. Back in the market, no one even looked at you. They treated you like you were nothing. If I walked away then, I'd never forgive myself. And now I know you're not nothing. You're everything they fear. For a long moment, Serena just stared at him. Then she placed her cold hand gently over his. Then it is decided. The air around them shifted. The symbols on her wrist flared again, brighter than ever. Light spread across her body, wrapping her like a cloak. Her posture straightened. Her eyes glowed like twin stars, and for the first time, Ethan saw her as she truly was, not a beggar, not even just a queen, but a force the galaxy had tried to bury and failed. In the distance, a low rumble echoed. Hovercrafts, soldiers. The Dominion was already closing in. Ethan tightened his grip on the glowing rod. They're coming. Serena rose to her feet. Her voice was calm, steady, regal. Then let them see. Let them all see. The first squad appeared over the ridge, lights flashing in the darkness. Behind them more followed, armored and armed. The ground trembled under their march. Ethan's pulse raced, but he stood tall beside her. The soldiers stopped a short distance away. Their commander raised his voice, amplified by a helmet speaker. Surrender, Lost One! This is your final chance. Serena's glow flared brighter, spilling across the plains. Her voice carried like a storm. I am not lost. I am Serena, High Matron of the Starlight Dominion. Your lies end tonight. The soldiers faltered. Even from afar, Ethan saw fear ripple through their ranks. The commander tried to bark another order, but his voice shook. She cannot be allowed to return. Ethan whispered, They're afraid of you. Serena nodded. Fear is their weapon, but truth is mine. She raised her hand high, and the symbols on her wrist shot light into the sky. The stars above seemed to respond, the constellations shifting as if waking from a long sleep. Ethan gasped as glowing paths appeared in the heavens, marking the vaults across the galaxy. The soldiers dropped to their knees, some covering their eyes. The commander stumbled back, his weapon falling from his hands. Serena lowered her arm slowly, her voice strong. The galaxy will remember, and no empire built on lies can stop it. Ethan stood at her side, the glowing rod in his hand, staring at the sky. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt part of something vast, something powerful. The soldiers turned and fled, scattering into the night. The plains fell silent again. Ethan turned to Serena. What happens now? Her glowing eyes softened. Now the choice belongs to the galaxy, but I will not walk it alone. You have tied your fate to mine, and together we will find the vaults. Together we will rise. Ethan nodded, a strange calm settling over him. He knew his life would never be normal again, but he also knew this was where he belonged. As they walked away from the city, the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The marketplace behind them, the whispers of fear, the laughter, the cruelty. It all felt far away now. Ahead lay a path of stars, and Ethan, the human boy who had once simply offered a helping hand, now walked beside a queen reborn.